What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. Today is not going to be necessarily a video similar to what I've done before. Today we are talking about dome. Interestingly enough, there are a lot of different conceptions and different theories out there about what it is that dome does in the disc golf community. Now, to be fair, I have a lot of experience with a very specific type of throw, which is my throw. I've been throwing disc golf discs since 2006. I started playing Ultimate Frisbee in 2005. I've thrown so many throws and so many different types of discs. That being said, your throw may be different, and the way that discs react to the way that you throw them may very well be different. Not only do I have a lot of experience playing disc golf, I also have a greater than the majority understanding of fluid dynamics and hydrology. And believe it or not, air operates as a fluid. And I used to work as a whitewater raft guide for 4 years professionally. And before that, I paddled as a whitewater kayaker in class 1, 2, 3, 4, and class 5 rapids. So I've seen a lot of how water operates and fluid operates on both a large scale and a small scale. And it does have a difference when you get to dome. Let's start off talking about something pretty simple. Just basics. We have a CD1. This came in the mystery box X Out, and this one's an X Out. It has a couple of different spots in it that are slightly different colored, and it's also much flatter. I don't know if this is why it was the X Out, but this one is basically just the rim and then it goes pretty flat across. Minimal dome. If you go get a stock CD1, this CD1 is much domier. The edge comes up, and then from where the edge of the rim meets the flight plate, so what we'll call the shoulder meets the flight plate, there's a pretty decent amount of dome all the way across. Gives it a nice little heartbeat. You probably can't hear it because there is wind out here. But we have two different discs, both of them essentially brand new, thrown maybe 2 or 3 times each. One has dome, one doesn't. We'll get to see what those do. Secondly, we have the disc that I've been searching for. This is a Star Eagle. This is one of the older style runs where it's much flatter across the top. I've thrown the Star Eagle for almost 15 of my 18 years of disc golf, and I've only ever thrown these. This Champion one, I have done a lot to try to de-domify it, and I don't know if you can tell, but it is still a good bit more domey. Still has more pop top to it than this Star one. So we'll see how these get to fly. And now these were all of the same mold, but different amounts of dome. Now we're gonna talk about the same amount of dome, different molds, right? So the amount that a disc comes up in the middle does not necessarily reflect how overstable it is. For beginners, if I were to throw a right hand backhand, if I were to throw like this, overstable means that it wants to dump to the left, understable means that it wants to turn over to the right, stable means it goes pretty much neutral, fairly straight. Here I have 3 different discs. One of them is from MVP and 2 of them are from Axiom. This is the Tesla, a pretty decently overstable 9-speed. And this is the Insanity. We can see how the nose actually comes down more on the Insanity than on the Tesla, but the center is pretty similar. And then we have the Virus, a much less stable. So we have pretty much neutral, overstable, and understable discs. Now, it wasn't very easy to demonstrate this process before these overmolded discs, but because we now have these overmolded discs, they have given us something to test, right? So these have a flight plate that they mold, and then they have a rim that is stuck on the outside. All three of these have the exact same flight plate mold. They have different rims. Let's see how they fly. This is hole number 10 at Lake Julian Park. From the long tee pads, I'm just gonna be throwing the 2 CD1s off of this tee pad. I want you to watch and not see how much they dump, but in that middle portion of the flight, how much do they drift from side to side? Not turning, not fading. How much do they drift from side to side? Orange is the flattest, yellow's the domey. Came out really flat, and then slow drift over to the right where it hit a tree, but it would have eventually faded out. I'm gonna throw this one very similar, almost exactly the same. I wanna see if it has that drift over into that tree on the right. The yellow one may have had a tiny bit more anhyzer, but did you see that flat orange one? How just laser beam straight it flew. It didn't veer off right or left, it didn't drift. That's what I'm talking about when I'm saying I want the flattest I can get certain discs. Because when I want a laser beam straight shot, I want it to be laser beam straight, doesn't veer off right or left, because I'm throwing into woods and tunnels, and I need to be able to rely on the flight of my disc. Now, I know this looks like something you might not want to do, but I found some running water, so I want to demonstrate how fluid dynamics work with the disc, right? So here we have the Domey CD1. I picked up the clear one so that we can see through the disc. But as your disc is flung through the air, right? Air goes over it, air goes under it. Now watch what happens to the air that goes over the top. Right about here, it is kind of pushed out and over, right? But what you may not see is what's going on the other side. So right here, I'm gonna have to bring the camera closer. So what you see going on right here is right where the current is coming in contact with the disc, there's a little air pocket right behind it. And what that's doing is bringing extra water from back over here where my thumb is in there to that hollow spot. So air is basically coming straight from this edge and curling up into the bottom of the disc. And that is what keeps these discs aloft. So here's where what most people don't understand about discs is that the higher the dome is, all that does is give it more air that is piling up from underneath it, pushing it upward. What does that do? It gives it more glide. What does glide do? It makes it stay in the air longer. Now, that is absolutely fantastic. Everyone wants their discs to stay in the air longer. However, sometimes I don't want my disc to stay in the air as long. I'm okay with shaving off 5 to 10 feet because I have a disc that's gonna go directly in line of where I want it, instead of hitting a tree that's 200 feet short of where I need to be. And that is why sometimes Domey discs are really fun and really nice to throw. I love Domey discs. I like to throw them. But I typically only throw them in the open, or if I need kind of a drifty shot in the woods. Typically in the woods, I try to go as flat top as possible, not puddle topped, flat top. Because if it's flat, that means that there is nothing other than the rim and the air. And it's doing exactly what the disc is supposed to do. Nothing more, nothing less. I forgot to mention this, but this is the flippiest disc that I own, and it is dead flat, Champion Rollo. Also, when water is pushed up under, or when air is pushed up underneath, the more air that is pushed up underneath, the more of a bubble it creates. And in the whitewater industry, we actually call it riding the bubble. And you have to be super, super consistent with your angle, up, down, nose, back first, things like that. Because if you are off just a tiny bit, when you ride the bubble, it just shifts you right off the side. So same thing with discs. I like to have less of a bubble for most of my controlled shots so that they don't just fall off the side of the air bubble. Back to the video. Finally walked far enough. Up here, hole 16. You can see it's wide open. I'm gonna go with the overmolded discs again. Throw them all on backhand. I'm not gonna throw them super, super hard because it's only 300 feet downhill and there's a wind. I don't want to just create rollers or send them into the street. So, Virus, Insanity, Tesla. So the understable, stable, overstable. So basically going to the right, staying straight, going to the left. I want you to watch how flat they are and how much they end up dumping off to their sides. If you'll watch, even the Virus, with as flat top as it is and as domey as it is on the sides, it's not domey in the middle, so it doesn't drift on its line. It goes on its line and then turns and rides on its line. It doesn't drift. I want you to kind of pay attention to that. So it got up, stayed straight, turned over to the right a little bit, and then I threw it pretty soft. So it did start to fade back. And that fade back is where you got that pan, but you don't really get that drift. It stayed on its line. It didn't drift on its line. It stayed straight on its line and went where it needed to go. Next up, Insanity. Yep. Pretty straight. I threw it pretty soft though, and a little bit nose up, so it didn't have near quite as much straight push as it otherwise would have. But that disc for me is pretty much neutral. If I throw it super hard, a little bit of hyzer, throw it super soft, a little bit of anhyzer, it just finishes right dead straight on that line. And now the Tesla. The Tesla I love because it flies the way that the pros that threw Thunderbirds back in the day. This flies for me like what they threw a Thunderbird. It just flies so true to its line. I love this disc. As it started to slow down, it just dumped off left. They're all the same exact center flight part. The only thing that's different is the rim. So why do people keep trying to tell me that flat top discs are more stable and they drift more on their line than glidey discs do? That is just 100% not factual. Maybe for you. For me, that's not how they work. Flat top, stay true to its line. Glidey, domey discs, drift side to side more. I do like that throw though. I'm gonna throw a glidey disc. Even before it got turned onto that Anheuser, true Anheuser angle, it was already starting to drift right. And that's why, like, I love that shot. I love what the CD1 can do. But sometimes it just needs something to stay on its line. You know what I'm saying? As far as dome is concerned, guys, throw what makes you happy and throw what you like. But as far as fluid dynamics goes, dome makes a disc go further in a less reliable flight path. So, if anyone can find a disc that flies exactly like this, as opposed to a disc that flies like this, those are both Eagles. One of those is old and Star. One of those is new and Champion. And guess which one went further to the left? Yeah. Please, if you'll know of a disc that flies exactly like one of these flat top eagles, I need one. Until next time, guys, see you out on the course. Yikes, those rocks.